It is 3 a.m. You are 200 miles off the Cape of Good Hope, caught in a storm that has turned the sea into a black, vertical nightmare. Your radar, your GPS, every piece of technology you trust has just gone dead. There is a smell in the air, not of salt, but of sulfur, of rot. And then you see it. It is a ship that should not exist, a ghost of wood and canvas tearing through the storm, its spectral sails glowing a terrifying blood red. It does not ride the waves, it commands them. It is the most famous, most terrifying, and most persistent ghost story in human history. You are staring into the abyss, and the Flying Dutchman is staring back. What is a ghost? We are told that ghosts are the spirits of the dead, faint echoes of a life once lived. But what if some ghosts are different? What if they are not the spirits of people, but the spirits of ideas? What if they are the echoes of our most profound arrogance, our deepest greed, and our most terrifying sins, given form? For over 400 years, the name the Flying Dutchman has been more than a story. It has been a warning, a maritime emotional trigger point. The legend is precise. The captain, often named Hendrik van der Decken, is a stubborn, brilliant, and arrogant man of the 17th century Dutch East India Company. He is trapped in a storm at the Cape of Good Hope, the Cape of Storms. His crew begs him to turn back. His ship is breaking apart. But Van der Decken is a man defined by greed and a schedule. He has cargo to deliver. He has profits to make. In a fit of hubris, he raises his fist to the heavens and makes a blasphemous vow. I will round this cape, even if I have to sail until Judgment Day. The legend states that the universe, or God, or the devil himself, heard him and accepted the terms. His ship was struck, his crew was damned, and he was granted his wish. He is now doomed to sail those waters for eternity, a spectral messenger of death. To see the Dutchman, the legend says, is a certain omen of your own doom. Your ship will be wrecked, your crew will be lost. It is a terrifying story, a perfect piece of folklore. And for centuries, that is what official history has labeled it. A myth, a fairy tale. Science, of course, has a comfortable, safe explanation. It is called Fata Morgana, a complex superior mirage. Science tells us that in certain rare atmospheric conditions, a layer of cold air gets trapped beneath a layer of warm air. This acts like a giant cosmic lens. Light rays are bent. A ship far over the horizon, a ship that is physically impossible to see, is lifted up, stretched, and projected into your line of sight. It can appear to be floating, to be distorted, to be moving impossibly fast. It is, science assures us, a simple trick of the light, a weather balloon, a mirage. Case closed. But this is where the comfortable story ends, and where the real investigation begins. Because the official story, the Fata Morgana explanation, is an intellectual failure. It is an explanation that ignores the most important and most terrifying parts of the data. It is a theory that fails to answer three profound questions. First, why is it always the same illusion? Why is it always a 17th century Dutch galleon? Why the blood-red sails? A mirage only reflects what is already there. Where are the spectral illusions of modern cargo ships, of oil tankers? Second, how does a trick of the light predict death? And third, if it is just a story, why did a future king of England swear on his royal life that he saw it with his own eyes? This is the fracture point, the moment the official narrative breaks. The Flying Dutchman is not a myth to be debunked. It is a mechanism to be understood. To find the truth, we must stop looking for a ghost in the water and start looking for the memory hidden in our own minds. This is not a story from a fantasy book. This is a story from a ship's log. July 11th, 1881. The HMS Bacchante, a British warship, is sailing off the coast of Australia. On board are two teenagers, Prince Albert and his younger brother, Prince George, the man who would one day be King George V of England. At 4 a.m., this is what Prince George wrote in his official log. The lookout man on the forecastle reported a strange red light, a phantom ship all aglow. The officer of the watch saw it too, a ship like the Flying Dutchman. 13 men on the deck of the Bacchante saw the spectral ship. They described it as being lit by a ghastly phosphorescent light. This was not a myth, it was a naval report. But the story does not end there. The legend demands a price. The Dutchman is an omen. At 10:45 a.m., just hours after the sighting, the very sailor who had first spotted the phantom ship fell from the topmast rigging. He was killed instantly. Coincidence, or the fulfillment of a 400-year-old curse? A future king and 12 sailors, all victims of a mass hallucination? Or were they witnesses to a phenomenon that science refuses to accept? The sightings and the curse did not stop in the age of sail. They accelerated into the age of steel and submarines. During the Second World War, Admiral Karl Donitz, the head of the Nazi U-boat fleet, reportedly noted in his war diary that his submarine crews, the most rational, technologically minded men in his navy, were repeatedly sighting the Flying Dutchman in the waters of the Cape. He dismissed the reports, but they kept coming. But perhaps the most disturbing fracture point is not a ship that was seen. It is a ship that vanished. Meet the SS Waratah. Launched in 1908, she was the pride of the Blue Anchor Line. 500 feet of steel, the most advanced, most luxurious ship on the Australia to England route. On her maiden voyage, passengers reported the ship was top-heavy, unstable. One experienced passenger had a nightmare of a spectral figure holding a bloody sword, walking the decks. He got off the ship at the next port. In July 1909, the Waratah left Durban, South Africa, bound for Cape Town. She had 211 passengers and crew. She passed a signal to a nearby ship, the Clan McIntyre, and then she sailed into the waters of the Cape and vanished from the face of the earth. No wreckage, no lifeboats, no survivors. Nothing. The search was the largest in history at the time. They found nothing. The Waratah became the Mary Celeste of the South. The official story blames a freak wave, a structural failure. The law knows the truth. She didn't just sink, she was taken. She had met the Dutchman. We are now faced with a pattern. A King of England, Nazi submarine commanders, a vanished modern steel liner. The Fata Morgana theory, the comfortable scientific illusion, is no longer sufficient. It is an intellectual surrender. It fails to explain the consistency of the sighting. It fails to explain the emotional terror it invokes, and it fails to explain its connection to real-world catastrophe. If the official story is a lie, then what is the truth? To find it, we must enter the realm of the unorthodox. We must look beyond the supernatural and into the 0 point. The truth, it turns out, is not one thing. It is three heretical narratives, each more terrifying than the last. The heretical narrative 1, the psychic echo. What if the Flying Dutchman is not a ghost, but a scar? We have explored this on 0 Point Lore before, the concept of myth as memory. The Cape of Good Hope is not just a piece of geography, it is a graveyard. For 500 years, it has been the single most treacherous, most feared passage of water on the planet. Thousands of ships, hundreds of thousands of souls have met their end in this place. Think of the energy, the sheer concentrated terror, the final screaming moments of 10,000 crews all focused on one point in the ocean. What if that energy left a stain? What if the Dutchman is not the ghost of one ship, but the gestalt, the collected psychic echo of all of them? A place memory so strong that under the intense atmospheric conditions of a storm, it can project itself into our reality. This would explain the terror. When Prince George saw the ship, he wasn't just seeing an illusion. He was feeling the concentrated psychic agony of every sailor who ever died there. The Dutchman is a haunting in the truest sense. It is the ocean's memory of our own suffering. This theory is profound, but it assumes the Dutchman is just an echo. Our second theory is far more physical and far more bizarre. The heretical narrative 2, the temporal anomaly. What if the Flying Dutchman is not a ghost ship at all? What if it's a real ship? What if Captain Vanderdecken, in his moment of supreme blasphemous arrogance, didn't just challenge God? What if he broke physics? Modern physics is beginning to accept the bizarre, the idea of closed time-like curves, the possibility of exotic matter. What if the unique, energetic and electromagnetic storm systems of the Cape created a fracture, a 0 point? What if the Dutchman is not a ghost ship, but a time-displaced ship, a real 17th century vessel and its screaming, terrified crew trapped in a catastrophic, repeating temporal loop? They are not dead. They are stuck. They are constantly reliving the last agonizing moments of their shipwreck, phasing in and out of our timeline, but never, ever finding rest. This would explain the sightings. It would explain why it looks so real, because for a few terrible moments, it is real. It is a scar in time, an historical event frozen, repeating forever. It is a terrifying thought, a scientific impossibility. But it is not the most terrifying theory. The most terrifying theory is the one that is most human. The heretical narrative 3, myth as memory. To find the final truth, we must do what official history is too lazy to do. We must ignore the supernatural curse and look for the human one. Who was Captain Vanderdecken? He was a captain of the VOC, the Dutch East India Company. We hear company and we think of an office. This is a mistake. The VOC was not a company. It was an empire. It was the first and perhaps most powerful multinational corporation in history. It had its own army, its own navy, the power to wage war, mint currency, and execute prisoners. And it was built on one single brutal ideology: profit at any cost. A VOC captain was not a free man. He was a cog in a ruthless machine. His contract was ironclad. He had a schedule. He had to deliver his cargo of spices, silk, and porcelain on time. If he was late, he was not just docked. He was financially ruined. His family was shamed. He could be imprisoned. Now, let us rewrite the legend. Captain Vanderdecken is at the Cape. The storm is, as the legend says, apocalyptic. His crew begs him to turn back. But the captain is not staring at the storm. He's staring at his contract. He is not afraid of God. He is afraid of his shareholders. He knows that if he turns back, he is ruined. If he is late, he is ruined. The blasphemous vow, "I will sail to Judgment Day," was not a curse aimed at God. It was the desperate, fatalistic cry of a man crushed by a human system. A man who chose to gamble with his crew's lives rather than face the corporate machine that owned him. He did not challenge God. He was broken by greed. In this version, the Flying Dutchman is real. It was a real ship with a real captain who made a real, fatal, and very human decision. He sailed into the storm, and he and his entire crew were annihilated. The ghost story that followed, the myth, was not a supernatural event. It was a memory, a piece of lore created by sailors to explain and to warn. A warning about the monsters of hubris. A warning about the soul-destroying horror of inhuman greed. The Flying Dutchman is not a ghost ship. It is the ghost of an economic system. It is the first and perhaps most terrifying ghost in the machine. The Flying Dutchman legend endures because the machine that built it never went away. We too are driven by schedules. We too are slaves to a global machine that demands profit at any cost. We too are sailing in the face of storms, ecological, social, and spiritual, while our captains are staring at their balance sheets. The Dutchman is not a 400-year-old myth. It is a mirror. It is a profound piece of zero-point lore, a warning written in the language of terror that has echoed through time. It is a warning that the most terrifying monsters are not the ones that come from the sea. They are the ones that we create ourselves. Here at Zero Point Lore, we believe that history is not just a collection of dates. It is a collection of warnings. It is a blueprint, and it is a map. If you believe that these myths are not fantasies, but are fragmented memories, if you believe that the past holds the keys to our present, then subscribe to this channel. Join the investigation. We want to know what you think. Of these three heretical narratives, which one do you believe holds the truth? Is the Dutchman a psychic echo of 1,000 dying crews? Is it a temporal anomaly, a ship forever stuck in time? Or is it the most terrifying truth of all, a myth as memory? The true story of a man broken by a ruthless human system. Let us know your theory in the comments below.